Good day, grade 11s. Today we will be doing your negatief. I will be sending you a set of notes that looks like this. This is going to be your negative notes. There's 3 pages for you to download. You would have written this down in class eventually, but now you get to print them out. Lucky for you. So before we start with negative, the first thing that I want you to please take note of is the fact that negative has a second name. It's called ontkennende vorm. So very important for you to know that negatief of ontkennende vorm exactly the same thing. Dieselfde means exactly the same. So we're dealing with exactly the same thing when they give you one of these words. So they can either use negatief in an instruction or ontkennende vorm in an instruction. They're asking you exactly the same thing. Now, the papers that you've received on the website consist of these 2 pages only. I rely on my notes just to give you some more detail as well. So on the pages that you've received, you would notice that they've given you an example of a description of negative, as well as what I call the verander woorde, or I call them the changing words. So whenever I refer to changing words from here on out, these are the words that I'm talking about. These are words that change when we change the sentence into negative. And then, of course, they've given you a few examples as well on how to do negative, but none of them have actual instructions on how to do negative. So I want to go through that with you today. So in order for you to understand all the methods, I want you to please take hold of this set of notes, the one that I have given you on the WhatsApp group. So when you start with negative or ontkennende vorm, negatieve vorm, the most important rule for negatieve vorm is daar moet altyd 2 negatiewe wees in 'n sin. Always 2 negatives. Now, it's either going to be a nie and a nie, or it's going to be a changing word and a nie. This changing word takes preference, always. This is always your first option, and this is your second option. So if you happen to have a changing word, this takes preference over the 2 nies in the sentence. You may not have more than 2 negatives per sentence. So that's the first and most important rule that you need to remember of ontkennende vorm. Only 2 negatives per sentence, and it's either a changing word and a nie at the end of the sentence, or a nie after verb 1 and a nie at the end of the sentence. So let's have a look at some of the things that you need to look out for when we start with negative. First thing, the verander woord, so the changing word takes preference. Voorkeur is preference. So die verander woord takes preference, kry voorkeur. That's why I say to you, this option is always your first option. So when you get a sentence, you want to go through that sentence and find your changing word. If there is a changing word, you need to make sure that that changing word takes preference in the sentence, regardless of where it is. Whether it's time, whether it's place, whether it's subject or object, it doesn't matter. If there's a word that can change in your sentence, then that changing word needs to change and you'll have a nie at the end of the sentence. Only when there is no changing word in the sentence do I go to the second bullet point. It says, your first nie goes after verb 1, and it must always be after verb 1. So you'll have verb 1 and then nie. So it always goes after verb 1. And then obviously we have our exceptions. So these are the two bullet points that make it simple. So up to here, it's pretty simple. I always have 2 negatives. It's either a changing word and nie, or nie and nie. If it happens to be a changing word, it takes preference. If there's no changing word, I put a nie after verb 1, and I make sure that I always put it after verb 1 and not after any other verbs. Then you have your exceptions. So your first exception, and this might be brand new to you, the rest you might be familiar with. The first exception is when your object is a pronoun. The nie moves after the pronoun. Please, this is important that you understand that your object has to be just a pronoun. It cannot be a pronoun and a noun. So if you happen to label everything in your sentence and your object is a pronoun only, then the nie moves to after the pronoun instead of after the verb. The example that I've given you here is sy leer hom swem. So, sy is my subject, leer is verb 1, hom is my object, swem is verb 2. When I look at my object consists of just a pronoun. When it consists of just a pronoun and nothing else, then usually my nie would have gone after verb 1. Then in this case, because my object consists of just a pronoun, I need to move my nie so that it doesn't go after my verb, but in this case, it now moves so that it goes after the pronoun. So therefore, you need to make a mental note that once you've identified your object, if your object is just a pronoun, that the nie moves after the pronoun instead of verb 1, as it should be. If in a sentence like this there happens to be a changing word, then I don't have to worry about anything. I just change the changing word and I add the nie at the end of the sentence. The second exception that you have is if I only have a subject and a verb in my sentence. So if there's only a subject and a verb, mine cut off here, so if there's only a subject and a verb 1, nothing else, then it only gets one nie in the sentence. So, for example, I have a subject, die kinders. I have a verb 1, speel. If my sentence consists of only a subject and a verb, then it only gets one nie, and the nie goes at the end of the sentence. So these are my two exceptions that I need to look out for in a sentence that I need to change into ontkennende vorm. First of all, if your object is just a pronoun, the nie moves to after the pronoun and not after the verb. And if my sentence consists of a subject and a verb and nothing else, then the nie goes after the, or right at the end of the sentence. I'm going to do a few examples with these two exceptions just for you to get a clear idea on exactly what to do and how to do it. So there's a few sentences and I just want you to be mindful of what you need to look out for. So in sentence number 1, die hond jaag hom vinnig. Remember, if I have an object as a pronoun and the object is just a pronoun, then the nie has to move after the pronoun. So, in the first sentence I have die hond jaag hom vinnig. Subject, verb, I have an object. My object consists of just a pronoun, nothing else. So therefore, instead of putting the nie after jaag, where it would have usually gone, and then the nie at the end of the sentence, the nie is now going to move from after jaag, where it would have been, to after hom. So that my answer is die hond jaag hom nie. That's the first nie. And then the second nie will go at the end of the sentence. So I have my two negatives in a sentence. Usually the nie would have gone after jaag, my verb. However, because the object is just a pronoun, it now moves to after the pronoun and not the verb. I want you to just look out for the following. In the second sentence that I have here, it says, Sally skryf haar naam op die boek. Subject, verb, my object consists of a pronoun plus a noun. When your object consists of a pronoun plus whatever, this rule does not apply. Then it's a sentence as usual. I'll have my sentence where I have the first nie goes after my verb. So there's verb, so the first nie goes in after the verb. And the second nie will go at the end of the sentence. So it'll just be a normal sentence. So that I have my two knees. In this case, the knee is after verb 1 as per a normal sentence because my object consists of a pronoun and a noun. Then the next one, another example, subject, verb, object is just a noun, and therefore the knee goes after the pronoun and not necessarily the verb. Eet hom nie op nie. So I have my two negatives in the sentence just after the pronoun instead of the verb because the object consists of just a pronoun. Once again, if I have a sentence where my object consists of a pronoun plus a noun, then the rule doesn't apply. So I'll have a normal sentence where the knee goes after verb 1, and I have my second knee at the end of the sentence. All right, so that consists of some examples for this particular rule for negative. Looking at the second one, where I'm only allowed one knee if it's just a subject and a verb. So in this sentence, I have a subject and a verb 1, nothing else. When your sentence consists of a subject and a verb only, nothing else, just one verb and a subject, then it only deserves one knee, and the knee goes at the end of the sentence. This does not apply the moment I have more than one verb or anything else of stompie in my sentence. The moment your sentence exceeds just a subject and verb 1, the rule doesn't apply. Then it just happens to be a normal sentence where my first knee will go after verb 1 and my second knee at the end of the sentence. So that I have die kinders wil nie eet nie. I'll have two negatives. The rule only applies if your sentence consists of just a subject and a verb. Then, for the next example, these are things that you need to please take into account. This one especially. This is a nice way to test your rules and your exceptions. In this sentence, I have a subject, a verb 1, and an object. Technically speaking, in a sentence like this, I should have two knees. However, if I have a pronoun, a verb, object as just a pronoun, the knee isn't allowed to go after verb 1. The knee must go after the pronoun. So in this case, I have a sentence that will only have one knee. I'm not allowed to add that second knee because of the object being just a pronoun. So this is almost a combination. This sentence here is a combination of these two exceptions. Because I have an object as just a pronoun and therefore the knee goes after the pronoun. And at the same time, I have a subject and a verb, but I can't put the knee after the verb 1. And therefore it has to move to the end, so it only gets the one knee. So just keep this one in mind. This is quite a nice one to ask in exams. Just once again, look out for something similar, but doesn't deserve the same amount of effort as this one. Sean, my verb 1 is bait. Because my object consists of a pronoun and a noun, it's a normal sentence. So I'll have my first knee after verb 1 and the second knee at the end of the sentence. So I'll have my two knees. So just look out for this one, as it is a combination of the two exceptions that we've been learning. What I would like you to do is go, before we continue with the rest of the notes, this paper is enough for you to be able to do your ontkennende vorm activity in your pack that you've received. The first thing that I need you to do is please go through your sentences and label your verbs. The same that we did yesterday with the voegwoorde. You have to go and identify verb 1. Please make note of the following. When you have a verb, you need to still identify the verb for me, even though you have a changing word. Go and double check that you're not changing something that can't change. And at the same token, that you're not putting a ni after verb 1 if there is a changing word in the sentence. For now, I would like you to complete this activity with the exception of number 13. As soon as we get to number 13's explanation in the next video, we'll tackle number 13. Until then, you should now be able to do all of these sentences. Remember, things like an infinitive doesn't change anything. The ni still goes to the end of the sentence. Things like conjunctions don't matter because at the end of the day, I still just need 2 negatives per sentence. So you're going to have 1 negative after verb 1, or you're going to change the changing word, and the second negative will be at the end of the sentence. Do not add a third negative. You are only allowed 2 negatives per sentence. Once you've completed this activity, remember to check your memo at the back to double check that you've managed to do all of this correctly. So this concludes today's lesson. Tomorrow, we will be looking at your negative on how to answer, how to do demands and requests, and how to tackle a question that doesn't need answering. So today, you managed to focus on this page over here. We did some examples. Tomorrow, we will be looking at your answering of your questions and your demands, as well as how to do a question when you're not answering. If you have any questions with just a normal sentence of ontkennende of negatieve vorm, please make sure that you let me know or WhatsApp me your queries before tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock. Enjoy!